Spend enough time on the analytical side of YouTube, especially in the gaming sphere, and you'll likely come across the phrase, "The key to good character design is when you can tell everything you need to know about them in a simple glance." However, as an avid reader and author myself, it tends to be the words on the page that call to me more than the physical appearance. This is one of the reasons I always find myself gravitating towards the characters of Dark Souls and other Souls-like titles, because while they might not all be the most eye-catching designs, what's on the page is certainly compelling. Their wants and needs are real. These characters, from Oscar of Astora to Lautrec of Carim, are imperfect, dramatic, and downright alive. But if Dark Souls has taught us anything, it is that nothing can go on forever, and all that is alive must one day die. Yeah, it's gonna be one of those runs. Howdy, I'm Prakuza, and welcome to DevBox, where today we're asking the question, can you beat Dark Souls with only NPC drops? And that brings us to the dead Oscar there. Killing him grants us our first boon that will make this run even remotely possible, for me. The Estus Flask. Yeah, I see y'all in the comments there, prepared to tell me how I shouldn't be allowed to heal. So, I killed Oscar for the flask and the keys to get out of here. Oh, and we pulled the quit out on the Asylum Demon, so we can come back and kill him for real later. Some pretty neat stuff with what happens to him, actually. Keep an eye out. To do this, we started as the thief, so we'll start with a master key, and took the black firebombs as the starting gift. So, with Oscar temporarily dead, more on that later too, we're heading into Lordran proper in order to get this run started in earnest. Now, as we start to make our way towards some bonfires, let's go over the exact rules of this run, because it's a little more involved than kill some NPCs and use their gear. Let's itemize that list then. 1. We can only equip gear that has been dropped by NPCs. 2. This includes weapons, armor, and rings. 3. I must equip the most recent piece of equipment that has been dropped. 4. NPCs can be killed at any time and in any order. 5. All NPCs must be killed before fighting Gwyn. 6. I must use each weapon to kill at least one boss. 7. After killing 2 bosses with 1 NPC weapon, I must acquire a new weapon from an NPC drop before challenging the next boss. And finally 8. For the sake of my sanity, soul duping will be allowed to mitigate grinding for upgrade materials and ammo. Alright, with the rules set in stone, etched into the very fabric of this reality which I will inhabit for the next few days of burning through this challenge, divined and unbreakable as Newton's own machinations on motion, we need to get our first kill and earn our first weapon, along with an armor set that is as impressive as it is heavy. So it's gonna be one of those runs. Huh. Yeah, we're killing Sunbro right off the bat. Fine, it's not like I play this game to feel good anymore or nothing. Not that anything does that for me anymore. Guess we'll be the agent of reaping for this fine soldier of the sun. Or more specifically, this dragon will be. And we'll struggle to push him over here so that we can get him in place to get burned. Well, Solaire is dead, and we've been gifted his armor, weapon, shield, and even a talisman that I'll never use because nobody drops a miracle when they die. Perhaps a few words for the fallen are in order. Rest well, O weary warrior of the sunlight. Fear not the coming of the dark. For this land of myths and illusions was never to be one where you would make your mark. There is no sun for you to find here, not of blood nor of light. Allow this Reaper man to take you away from here, so that in death you might escape this land of dark and blight. Alright, with our first NPC kill out of the way, we've got a full gear set that could easily take us through the rest of the game. Like, the Sunlight Straight Sword isn't exactly the most impressive weapon in the game, but send it down the Divine Tree and pick up the Lightning Spears, and it's got the making for a killer casual build. Not for the build we'll be doing here, though, since Solaire doesn't drop Lightning Spears, which means they are off the table for us. What we can do, however, is take on Havel. Ahem. We can take on Havel. There we go. And get his ring. That'll help us stay out of fat rolling territory while we're stuck in the Solaire armor, which we'll be in for most of the run, by the way. Most NPCs do not drop their armor. You can find a lot of armor sets after invasions, but none of those count. I don't know if I ever gathered footage for it, but the reasoning behind that is Beatrice. Her gear drops after she dies after you beat the 4 kings. Since I'm not the one killing her, then that doesn't count as a drop, and therefore anything that I pick up from a corpse, even if it spawns as a direct result of killing an NPC like Kirk or Jeremiah, also doesn't count. However, now is not the time to discuss tactics or rules. Now is the time to offer words for the dead. Your long watch is over, ye noble knight of stone. A humble man who grew to such heights as to slay dragons. There remains no enemy who deserves to face your might. Even your mind has seen the light and gone. The era of lords and knights has passed, and so it is time for you to do the same. Rejoin your humanity on the other side, brave warrior, in the next world, where a gentler lord might keep you sane. Well, with the NPCs already starting to fall and Havel's ring helping me deal with the weight until I can get the endurance to wear this gear more comfortably, it's time to go kill our first boss, the Bell Gargoyles. At this point, I have the Sunlight Straight Sword up to +5, so my damage is pretty on par with a casual run for the game. Again, the weapon is nothing super special, but it's also not a complete lost cause. On the plus side, the armor helps keep me from getting knocked around too much, which does a lot of work to keep me in this fight all the way through to the end. Probably one of the more difficult fights against these two I've had in a long time. But as long as I keep my eye on the backup when he arrives, it's nothing to really worry about. By the way, I say keep my eye on the backup, and you might notice that I'm locked onto one without really looking at the other. I mostly use sound cues, the screen shake from the other boss being nearby, and a fair dose of intuition to tell me if I need to back off or dodge. It's the same method I used while locked onto Ornstein the whole time in the ONS fight. That's one reason why lock-on doesn't mess with me in this game like it seems to for a lot of other folks. Getting the final bell rung also moves us on to the next boss. This time we're heading to the Capra Demon. Yeah, bosses are going to start getting a bit tougher from here on out, so we need to work on making sure we can get our damage up consistently. That means fighting Capra in his little shoebox and getting access to the depths. And at this point, that's kind of all this guy is, a stepping stone on the path to greater strength. Equipped with enough armor to poise through the dogs, Capra is exactly that, and goes down without much effort. Not to say he doesn't come close to killing me, but only that this is hardly a fight to bother calling a struggle. That's still to come. A quick trip down into the depths and we've got our large ember. This is all we're down here for right now. We'll be back later for everything else. For now, we need a new weapon and access to make proper use of the new ember. To do that, we can take the back path into Blighttown and get invaded by Man-Eater Mildred. She's strong, but a few parries is all it takes to get through this fight without much extra effort. Yeah, that'll be a trend for a lot of these NPC fights actually. That and killing them with environmental effects. Turns out, the Toxic Invader meta works, if killing the other character is the only result that matters. With this, we have access to our next weapon, the Butcher Knife. But, before we move on, we should put this invading spirit to rest. Return again through the seam between worlds. There is peace to be found, Eater of Men. When you embrace that which you've spread to others, you too can be given the same release then. Return again to your own lands now, where the death which you so easily peddle awaits you with the care that all reapers should, to offer you an end worthy of your mettle. So, who are we going to use this weapon on? Well, Quelaag's here. Why not her? Now, I'll note that this isn't quite as quick of a trip as I make it sound. On the way here, I've upgraded the Butcher Knife to around +7, which is about as high as I could get it without farming or spending much extra time hunting down materials. Fortunately, killing Quelaag will help us on our way towards being able to skip the farming and make sure that all weapons from here on out can quickly get to +10. In that case, how does Quelaag herself go? Not bad. It's almost strange at this point to have appropriate damage for bosses compared to how quickly I'd gotten overpowered back in the Soul Level 1 run. Like, this really felt a lot more like a casual playthrough. And it wasn't a bad feeling to be simply playing Dark Souls again, much closer to what's intended. After Quelaag, however, things are about to start skewing away from your average casual run. And not only because I'm saving Gaping Dragon for much later, this is because we're heading up into Sen's Fortress. Once again, we're heading here because it'll give us access to some upgrade materials. Specifically, we can find the Crestfallen Merchant here, who can sell us the remaining large Titanite shards we need to upgrade to plus 10. Hey, why don't we test out how strong the plus 10 has made us? Maybe against the Crestfallen Warrior. Yeah, it turns out we're pretty strong. Even if we have to pull the weird one-hand parry, two-hand riposte maneuver because we don't really have strength to one-hand the butcher knife. All the same, we bust up Dark Souls' most depressed resident with little effort. Sorry about piling it on, to be honest, but perhaps a few words for the fallen will ease his burdens into the next life. O warrior, robbed by these fading times of your indefatigable devotion to the lords of old, see an end to the suffering that has long befallen you, that has left your heart ashen and cold. Take the gentle hand of death this day, these bony fingers that extend with a kind escape. For you needn't sit and wait for the bells to awaken. Instead, let the Reaper's hand guide you by the nape. Well, that plus 10 upgrade couldn't come any sooner, because we've already got our second boss to fight with the butcher knife. Yeah, we're going for progress as quickly as we can here, and the Iron Golem is the next obstacle in that path. As far as being an obstacle, however, the Iron Golem isn't really much of one. The Butcher's Knife moveset is perfect for nailing those shins to get the stagger and tumble. I honestly don't even think I'll have to edit down any of the footage to fit it within the brief description of the fight. This guy goes down that quickly, and we aren't even going to be heading straight to Anor Londo after beating him. No, we have more NPCs to check off the list now. I mean, this was the second boss with this weapon, so clearly, we need some new gear. Not armor, of course, but a new weapon at least. Considering that we're about to face off against Ornstein and Smo next, I wanted to go with a weapon that I'm otherwise fairly comfortable with. Like, I'm not exactly looking to fight these guys with a little pokeboy like Ricard's Rapier or something. This could easily be a hard wall if I choose the wrong NPC to off here. Which is why I make the trip back to Undead Burg in order to take on the Undead Merchant. He barely sees us coming, and doesn't stand much of a chance against a plus 10 butcher knife. This then gets us access to the Uchigatana. Before my challenge running days, this was actually my most common casual weapon. It's got decent bleed, good dex scaling, and a way better moveset than most of the other katanas and curved swords in DS1. However, as we take on our new weapon, it is time again to offer words to our fallen friend. Allow yourself to fade, O fiscal hermit. Your riches need no longer be a worry. There was never going to be a way to take your wealth with you, though you were so dedicated to gather wealth in such a hurry. This is not a time to think of what you missed or what may have been. Instead, allow for peace to take you, and see this grind come to an end. My apologies for the silence. This run is beginning to weigh on me. It's quiet in this room. Empty. As someone who prefers to help each character hit the end of their storylines, spreading so much death is somewhat new. Still, we soldier on and continue our reaping into Anor Londo. Time to take on Ornstein and Smo. So, how's the first hard wall of the game? Well, like always, this fight is much more of a speed bump than anything. I mean, they kill me a fair few times. Hell, Super Smo even manages to slam my face into the dirt once. But with the freedom to pump vitality as much as I want, my survivability makes up for the lackluster damage and a handful of terrible dodges. Solaire's armor also helps up my ability to survive against these two. In fact, this armor ranks pretty well, alongside the Sunlight Straight Sword as a solid mid-level armor set that fits almost perfectly as a mid-tier equipment set. Perfect for a casual playthrough that keeps the game tough, but tilts the needle enough into the player's favor out of challenge run territory. I really cannot express how perfectly Solaire's equipment nails the vibe of Dark Souls 1. Alright, enough gushing about equipment, let's talk about Ornstein and Smo. Oh, they died while I was talking. Well, I'm sure I had nothing else to say about them. Also, the Uchigatana continues to kick ass. Awesome weapon. Going to be really sad to see it go for some other shit. But before that, we need to continue our trek forward, gathering up the Lord Vessel from Guinevere, who we'll deal with later, and get ready to open up access to as many NPCs as we can. The next step in that direction, by the way, is to get that DLC prepped. And at this point, we all know the steps, right? Actually, considering how many comments I've gotten about stuff that I always assume to be ubiquitous knowledge, like how starting as the thief and picking the black firebombs allows you to start with those and the master key together, it might be worth the effort of actually showing how to open up the DLC. So, we need to start by dropping off the Lord Vessel in order to remove the golden barriers that block the path towards all of the endgame areas. Then, we head into Darkroot Basin and fight this Hydra. A fight that I always remember liking back when I first got into this game, but now that he's a stepping stone towards getting into the DLC, I really can't help finding this annoying. This thing loves to blast that water attack that really doesn't telegraph the hitbox properly, and will often hit me from behind when the attack is off-screen. Then there's the final head that loves to clip into the wall and rarely stretches out far enough to actually be hit with a melee weapon because of the underwater cliff. And I know exactly why I liked this more when playing casually, because I usually have access to Soul Spear or some other sorcery to attack those distant heads in those playthroughs, so the melee-only issue never exactly came up as much. Anyway, with the Hydra done, we also want to free Dusk by killing the golden crystal golem that she's trapped in, and I think it's also mandatory to talk to her at least once after freeing her. Not exactly sure, but I always do anyway. Then, finally, we head into the Duke's Archives, after killing the boars, and fight this random crystal golem that got added after the DLC launched. Yeah, for anyone who remembers DS1 at launch, this was really strange to see exactly how randomly placed the key to the DLC felt. Anyway, pick up the broken pendant and head back to where the golden crystal golem had held Dusk, and the Handman gives us a one-way trip back in time. Alright, now that we're here, we've got exactly one boss to fight while we've still got the Uchigatana. And yes, this is still only the second fight with this weapon. The Hydra doesn't count. No giant health bar, not a boss. So, Sanctuary Guardian. How's this go with the Uchigatana? Again, I'm very comfortable with this weapon. It really is a favorite of mine. To the point that before ever even making this channel, I've done a handful of runs where I dual wield this alongside a washing pole. Because it was fun. But with that in mind, yeah, Sanctuary Guardian is pretty simple. In fact, this was supposed to be a sanity check to see if I needed to go beef up the build before heading into the DLC for real. But I got the boss in one. It was pretty close by the end, but still, I haven't had this easy of a time with this guy since starting the channel. Now, the rest of the DLC, yeah, that's going to go ahead and wait for a bit. Mostly because I'm going to need to make sure that I've got a decent weapon to use against Artorias, who not only blocks access to the other two bosses, but also two other NPCs who drop weapons for me to use, which does mean that he'll have to die soon. For now, we've got a handful of alternate NPCs to go after, especially while I've got the Uchigatana in hand. These will include Laurentius, who I absolutely obliterate so quickly that I forget that I actually needed something that he gives me, but doesn't drop, in order for another NPC to spawn later. So yeah, bit of a mistake there, but it's fine. I'll work on the backup for that missed character later. What's important now is those final words for our fallen friend. Worry not, O wizard of the swamps. Ease the flames within your heart before this world burns, and know that your dedication was never heresy. For reaching up towards powers beyond is how a human learns. Take pride in the flames that you touched and survived, as it takes a special strength to leave this world unscarred. However, there is no power in any world that can truly escape death or keep the Reaper barred. Perhaps not the best death for a good man, but what comes next is a worse one for a worse one. The bell has tolled for wicked Lautrec. We let him kill the Firekeeper back at Firelink and continue his questline, because if we're looking to actually kill every single NPC, then that did mean that we needed to do the invasion encounter here. I don't believe these two have names, and it's difficult to say if killing them as phantoms really means that they fully die. But considering that a lot of NPC invaders can be found dead after defeating their invasion encounter, I think I'll count these as dead as well. So, all three should get some words to share, because whether pure of heart or dark of soul, everyone deserves to be remembered as they pass. Leave now this world, O wretched traitor, and take your companions with you in tow. This world has enough dark to suffer another, that would so willingly spread death to both friend and foe, to kill and steal the life of those whom had previously offered warm Xenia, is a choice that calls the Reaper to move with haste, making right the world by robbing you of your Xenia. Alright, we've got some fresh kills down, but at this point the Uchigatana is getting a little old. In that case, we need another weapon, and I've got a specific one in mind, for a couple different reasons. However, this will require a certain amount of luck in order to get it, and RNG is not exactly on my side this time. So we head down and kill Kirk for his first invasion. His poem will come later, but we don't manage to get any drops from him. This unfortunately means that in order to get Kirk's weapon or shield, either will do, we need to get past Ceaseless Discharge. And well, we've already used up our Uchigatana, so that bad RNG means we now need to pivot a bit. On the way to that pivot, we also kill the Crestfallen Merchant. He's another one that doesn't drop anything, and this will probably be my last time in Sen's Fortress, which makes this a convenient time to go for the kill. Worry not though, fair viewers. Everything useful that he sells can also be purchased at the giant blacksmith for cheaper. All of this is to say that losing this merchant doesn't really lose us anything worth keeping. A cruel sentiment, I know, but perhaps some words for the fallen will ease this soul. Embrace your death, O warrior of steel, the second for one who'd sworn their life to the sword, as to fall from your crest is to become an empty dirge without a word. However, we are all equal in the end when the Reaper Man is called forth, whether high on your horse or having fallen to not see your worth. So, let's head back to Sen's Fortress and take on Ricard, so we can get his Rapier. Not sure if it's pronounced Ricard or Ricard, but no Y this time, so I'm going to go with Ricard. Now, if the Uchigatana is delightfully comfortable, then Ricard's Rapier is remarkably unfamiliar. First, the closest I've ever gotten to a Rapier build was that lefty run, but the parrying dagger technically doesn't count. Although I did almost pick out the Mailbreaker instead, but it didn't fit the technicality I was looking for. So yeah, I am certainly not very good with this Pokeboy, and it shows. But before we rid ourselves of this weapon, a few words for the dead. Rest well, O wandering prince. Your endless trek that has led you north has reached finality in this fortress of traps, among the many others who have failed to show their worth. Do not fear of this early end, however, as it was never your fate to become more than hesitant myth. Instead, you may now escape this world and regain the humanity it would not allow you to exist with. Alright, let's get rid of this weapon. I'm gonna go ahead and use this to kill exactly one boss and move the hell on. Yeah, I'm using this to cheese Ceaseless Discharge. Now, I've got a handful of these bosses on the back burner actually. Ones where the weapon hardly matters, and I should be able to get through the fight no matter how weak I'm forced to be. We've seen this strat before, and considering the requirements to get it done, it can barely be considered cheese. Kind of like dropping Iron Golem off his arena. I mean, FromSoft put a unique animation into the game for these. These are absolutely intended ways to kill these dudes. So, boss killed, and it is now time to get a new weapon. Fortunately, there is one right after Ceaseless. Or at least there is another chance to get a new weapon. And once again, I'm going to have to get lucky. And in this case, RNG is finally on my side. Kirk's second invasion leaves me with the Barbed straight sword. Sweet! This is actually a pretty decent straight sword, with some nice bleed attached to it. I mean, for a bleed-specific build, there's certainly better options, like the Bandit's Knife, which has the same bleed build-up with a faster moveset, or the Life Hunt Scythe, which has an entirely unique bleed ability. But as far as straight swords go, the bleed on the Barbed helps to make up for what would otherwise be a lack of DPS. You know, as long as the boss we're going up against can actually be bled. In that case, it's time to head back to the Undead Asylum in order to finally take on the Asylum Demon, and his first reskin, the Stray Demon. In fact, the first time I did the Asylum Demon skip, I asked the comments if it was possible to fight these two at the same time, and someone decided to comment, yes actually. However, I'm here to make a slight correction, because I don't know if I would call this yes actually, but instead, yes, you kinda. See, the Asylum Demon does not seem to enjoy being out of his normal arena, and immediately starts to walk away. It's kinda like when you run too far from the Bony Boys at the entrance to the catacombs, and they start to back slowly away, sort of acknowledging that they don't belong in the main section of Firelink. However, the only way out is the ladder that is currently covered by fog, so the Asylum Demon has nowhere to go. Then, the yes part comes, and the Stray Demon... Neat. Turns out, we can get the Demon's Great Hammer without actually killing anything. Well, this has also bugged out the Stray Demon, unfortunately. So, we never get the boss music again, nor do we get to see the boss's health bar. That being said, we are still doing damage, and the boss does get one of the normal little health bars, which means we can see that our slashes with the Barbed Straight Sword are having an effect. More importantly, he still bleeds. And you know what they say, if it bleeds, we can kill it. And kill it we do. I'll also be making a tough decision with this fight, and specifically this weapon. I'm going to count this as two bosses, even if Stray mostly killed Asylum for me, which means that I'm going to need to use a different weapon before fighting my next boss. Although before that, it's finally time to pick up a new shield. That, of course, means killing Oscar again. Only this time, maybe I won't be so cold-hearted about it. In fact, worry not, O elite knight of Astora, about the fate of your undead task, about the legends that brought you north, about the request you weren't given the chance to ask. This Reaper is no mindless purveyor of death. My duty is more than what any other would dare. For to take on the job of guiding souls like yours beyond your bodies, the Reaper Man simply must care. So, new shield. What'd it do? Well, it's, a little lighter? Oh, and it has some pretty good magic resistance. Yeah, this really isn't going to be a huge change. Almost makes it feel like killing Oscar wasn't really worth the effort. Like, constantly slaughtering all of these characters I'm supposed to give a shit about is, all an experiment in futility, in embracing the most pessimistic nihilism this game can offer. Why bother at that point? Yeah, I know why, but still. Who's next on the chopping block? We still need a weapon after all. So we're not going for another boss yet. No, we have more death to spread. And in this case, that means killing Ferris for their black bow. Real quick, I'll be using they, them for Ferris because of some strangeness with the description of the bow and the hat, which both use male pronouns, while the character model is very clearly a woman. Not sure if it's a mistake somewhere, but since I can't confirm one gender or the other, then non-binary is how I go here. I'll probably have to mention them later for a bow-only build in the future anyway, so better to set that straight right now. Anyway, we're kicking them the fuck off this cliff. Or at least we're trying to kick them off the cliff. But I suck at making sure that I'm actually kicking instead of slashing. Still, after a while, the slashing eventually turns into a full-on fight, but a good parry or two, and we've got Ferris off the cliff. Then it's a quick quit out, and the Blackbow is back at Ferris's spawn point, along with their hat. Stylish. Pass in peace, old hero of ages past. This land deserves not your continued century. It deserves, as you all do, to pass into the next cycle along the centuries. Your bow, trusted to fire true, it will aid this reaper well in this world, on the ongoing task to end the torment of the dead, and end the need to protect these lands from this undead dark and cold. Alright, let's see what this bow can actually do. Oh, and this is where I'll be souls duping here to skip the grind for arrows. I know, but this video was already taking way too long to get finished, and hunting down 2,000 arrows didn't feel like it would be fun for me or you. So let's go ahead and breeze on past this. Go ahead and pretend that I did the dragon passive farm for like 20 hours if that helps. Well, that leaves us with the task of finding a new boss. How about another one of those easy bosses? Something that wouldn't be too much to handle for the bow. Yep, we're killing Pinwheel. It goes about as well as you could imagine. And he even drops me the Mask of the Mother. Too bad I can't use it. That extra health would be nice. But this hat is so nice, who'd want to give it up? And you know what? That boss was too easy. How about we go kill something with a little more meat to chunk through? Let's keep diving a little deeper into the Tomb of the Giants and finish off a handful of NPCs. 2, actually. The others here can be taken care of later. It's time to kill Vince and Nico. They don't really drop anything, so let's get right to the final words for these two. Allow yourself and the dead you hunt to rest as fate had always asked of you. O holy men, followers of white, this undeath was never an opportunity to steal in lieu. Your minds have long left those empty skulls, but this need not be a continued presence. If only you would join your souls, finding from this world a peaceful severance. Maybe this will be a good weapon against Artorias. Yeah, that's gonna be a hard no from me. How about we head back into base Lordran? Well, with Kirk's second invasion finished, we can head down into the Demon Ruins and take on Demon Fire Sage. Gonna be honest, both of these were really only meant to be sanity checks, and the Demon Fire Sage passed that check. Even if he did kill me once during that check. But with the Fire Sage dead, we once again find ourselves needing a new weapon. How about a change of scenery? It's awful hot in the Demon Ruins. Let's go somewhere a bit cooler. And we've hit the other extreme. Not exactly what I meant, Dark Souls. Jeez, what's a guy gotta do for a temperate climate around here? Well, nothing to do now but push forward. Let's go. The bow is actually pretty useful here, and the black bow is a bit faster than I would have expected from a longbow. Honestly, the bow only run is looking good right now, to the point that I couldn't really imagine making an actual video from it. Like, this might not be too hard if I really get a good build together. It even does good on this zombie dragon. Absolutely no risk of getting slapped or barfed on. We're even able to take on King Jeremiah without much issue. And that gets us the Thorn Whip. Also, begone to your own realm, Invader King. Sit by the side of your precious charge if you must. But know that she too will join this world in burning death. On those words, you can trust. There should be no fear from you or the denizens of this painted land, for this is not a fate that any should avoid when the Reaper comes to extend his hand. So, to answer whatever questions might be cropping up now, no, I will not be fighting Priscilla with an unupgraded Thorn Whip. Also, yes, I will absolutely be coming back to slaughter her later. For now though, we take our whip and jump. And we've still got a handful of easy bosses to kill. But in this case, I'm not exactly looking for easy pickings. Instead, we're going for the Centipede Demon. I mean, not the most difficult fight, but certainly not the easiest, especially with the Thorn Whip. Even at plus 10, this thing runs into a bit of an issue of range especially. Even when the centipede demon throws its arm at me, I can't really reach it. So the start of this fight is a lot of waiting. Fortunately, once the boss makes its way to my little beach over here, things start going a lot better. We even get a few bleed procs off. After a few minutes, we kill the centipede demon in one try. So at this point, I was a bit paralyzed by choice. I needed to make sure that I would actually run into every NPC possible, like how I'd allowed Lautric to kill the Firelink Firekeeper in order to kill his two phantom friends. In this case, I decided that it would be a good idea to work on getting Quilana to appear, something that will actually take some doing, especially after I already killed Laurentis before he could give me the Pyromancy Flame. This means I need to get infected in the Demon Ruins, sprout one of these head bulbousy things, talk to Engi, then have him give me a Pyromancy Flame. Finally, I need to level it to 10, and boom, Quilana appears in Blighttown, in time to get killed by a whip. There is no longer a reason for you to remain, O daughter of intelligent flame. You need not watch over your familial sin. The next life is no place to hold so tight to such blame. Join your sisters and mother alike in the peace beyond this land's curse. Embrace that you sought only to create new life. An act of love's intentions could have been much worse. And now we have Fire Tempest. So, I'm gonna level with you here. I never really intended to kill any bosses with this. Like, I know it has the potential to one-shot plenty of bosses, but that usually requires getting into hyper mode to accomplish. And we can't exactly do that right now, since the ring and spell required don't come from NPC drops. However, I had been holding on to the Tauros demon for a while, and decided to sanity check it there. Since this spell essentially only has 2 casts, with 4 opportunities to deal damage, I really needed for it to kill immediately. Otherwise, the plan was to test it, fail, then immediately write some rule to say that I couldn't use this because I'm talking about equipment and not spells. But then, this happened. I also might have learned that it's possible to get more uses out of this, as long as I get hit before using up too much of the casts. So, instead of using 17 of the 20 uses all at once, it uses like 5? That's for later, but not for now. For now, I got a kill with the Fire Tempest and can move on to my next weapon. In this case, we're going for someone that we might be able to kill with the environment, rather than our Fire Tempest. Because I don't know if we'll be able to actually finish off an NPC with this thing. Oh wait, it worked! Shiva's dead, and his bodyguard too. Don't mind how I got them to spawn down here, that's a dev box secret. And allow this next poem to read for all the forest hunters, because I'm about to go on a bit of a spree. Also, some of them respawn and it kinda kills the vibe of the video to focus on them too long. O ye protectors of the forest, the dead who have risen to stand as stalwart sentinels. Your duty is fair and your deeds commendable, but your results are naught but spectacles. Not even the spirits of the forest, nor the wolf who waits below, can save the lonely knight's soul, who had known the Reaper so long ago. So many souls. It is difficult to stomach. But this Reaper man can make do, for it is for the best of these souls to leave Lodran. As long as the path forward doesn't force me to abscond with the life of something more precious than these noble warriors. Are you kidding me, Dark Souls? A fucking puppy. I mean, she's an ancient puppy, but a puppy. Have you no shame, Miyazaki? And the other fine people who worked on the development of this game and deserve much more love and attention for your contributions to this amazing series. Whatever. Let's kill Sif. I guess. If I have to. And look, she's almost killed me. I know. If I lose, then I'll count that as my own soul being reaped. And we can call this whole thing... off. Fuck. Okay, well, that's over. Let's try to move on, I guess. Goodness, I almost want to offer some words for that one. But that's not how this is done. Instead, let's offer some words for Ingward, because we've got a new goal coming up and he holds the key. I mean, he'd have given it to us at this point if we talked to him, but again, that's not how this is done. The time has come to release the waters, so hold the keys to this city no more. O watcher of the drowned and damned, allow instead for a true end to burn the soaked floor. You stand watch over a home for only ghosts, a fate that none would wish for you to see. But lo, if only you would follow the Reaper Man to where you are meant to be. And it's Four Kings time, which is a great time to actually mention the state of my rings right now. After killing Shiva's bodyguard, I was forced to wear the somersaulting dark wood grain ring. But that doesn't exactly mean that I can get any benefit from it, and it has replaced the Havel's ring. In the other slot, I've still got the Fap ring from Lautrec, so in this case, I'll be removing the Flippy ring in order to wear the Covenant of Artorias, because once this boss is finished, I'll be going back to the previous build, and that won't be possible if I take the Fap ring off now. Although don't worry, it will be leaving my fingers soon. So, the Four Kings themselves. How is that fight going? Well, significantly better than I might have expected. To note, this build isn't exactly min-maxing. My strength and dex are both relatively low, only about halfway to their soft cap. And the Murokumo I'm using, Ingward didn't drop any weapons, only the key, is only at plus 10. So like, yeah, I really shouldn't have the damage to pass the DPS test for the kings, but here I am, killing the first king as the second spawns. Hell, with good enough RNG and allowing myself to take a few hits, and I actually have to wait for one of the kings to arrive. This is all to say, the Murokumo kind of slaps. Totally worth farming giant skeletons for, unless you're heartless enough to kill Shiva, like some type of inhuman monster. Hey, look at that, the Four Kings are dead. Time to go hunt down some more NPCs. Boy, this run sure is fun, huh? Well, now seems like the best time to head back into the Tomb of the Giants. Now, I initially came here earlier because I wanted to get quick access to Patches, because he drops a weapon, but there's an invasion in the tomb itself, which I'll need to earn, and want to use against Nito. So, let's fight Paladin Leroy, who I don't really understand why he decides to invade us. Kinda weird after having been so ready to help us against Pinwheel. But hey, I'm not a lore guy. I'm a narrative guy. And to continue the narrative of this video, it's time to share some more words. To fight for life, O Paladin of Death, is the right of all men, women, and children. But to fight for death, you poor soul, can only lead you to one true end. Follow not the first touch by the Reaper Man. Only he who ferries lives where they belong. Not one who swam against the tides of Styx to drip miasma from a skeleton form gone wrong. Okay, Nito time. How usable does Grant look? Not very? Oh, right. The thing I mentioned about not having much strength, or faith and intelligence on that note. And believe me, both of those will be coming up soon. I'm gonna level with you here. We've been at this for a while, and this run has been weighing on me a bit. On one degree, for all the death I'm dealing, but also for other offline reasons. So, hitting this issue with Grant, I decided to go ahead and soul dupe until I could use it. Not enough to one-hand the oversized weapon like Leroy does, but enough that I could two-hand it and still get the benefits that come with hitting the faith threshold. I'll do the same later for Int as well. Alright, Nito though. How's he go? Well, with a +5 Grant and the stats to wield it, he's hardly even a speed bump. You could definitely argue that the soul duping has a lot to do with that, but this is also one of the strongest weapons in the game, so yeah, that too. In fact, while I've got this, why don't I use it to stomp Artorias into the dust? Yep, it sure does work. Again, the game sure is easy with something this powerful in your hands, and the stats to use it. Wonder how fast you can pick this bad boy up. question for another video. For this video, we've unlocked access to quite a few things. For one, there's the Chester invasion, then there are the mimics, one of which lets us go meet Gough.
A visitor, have we?
At the same time, Karen appears in Artorias' place eventually. Both of these will give us some opportunities. Not only to pick up some new armor sets I never use, but also get our hands on weapons that we could simply do their quest lines to receive. But again, that's not how we do things around here. Then again, we aren't exactly ready to pick up these specific weapons. Still, it's good to have access, now that we're starting to run out of base game gear to use. Speaking of which, it's time for a new weapon. This could be a good time to go for one of the final easy bosses, and kill a couple NPCs right in front of the arena. Fortunately for me, Kirk has already dropped his sword, which means that I get an update to both hands at once. So, this isn't always how I take these two on, but it turns out to be quite the benefit for me here, since it means that I actually get to deal some real damage to both enemies. The first is the unnamed Witch of Izalith, and the second is the final fight for Kirk. Killing them both will give me the Izalith Catalyst and Spike Shield respectively. And while the Catalyst is fine casting-wise, it is not exactly worth using in a real fight. So let's use it to kill a boss that has literally 1 HP. As we head into the bed of chaos, however, let's spare some words for the dying. A daughter of flame and follower of chaos, lost protectors of this lost ziggurat. Stay your blades and rest your spells. Allow me to pass and slay your corrupted brat. Death to my hand may be your end in this world, but that needs not be a somber occasion. Because this end is of life and strife alike, and the offer of peace is the greatest persuasion. Okay, we've been doing the Bed of Chaos through that whole poem, and there is hardly anything I can add to my strategy here that I haven't already mentioned in previous runs, like Soul Level 1. Left to right, and try baiting out the attacks that allow you to get some distance. And once we've broken the sides, hit the bug in the middle for the insta-kill. Or, you know, in any other run, go for the firebomb method. Alright, from here, we can take out the final remaining Lord Soul, and fortunately, there is a weapon there waiting for us. And this one is slightly better than what we're currently using, because what we're currently using is garbage. In fact, on the way into the Duke's Archives, it's the Spike Shield that actually gives me the ability to take on the Crystal Knight NPC. A bit ironic, because normally the shield is the key to fighting NPCs by parrying, but here, it simply does better damage than my actual weapon with the bash. And that leaves us the need to offer more words for the dead, as we ourselves become the dying. Why cling so tightly for an eternity of dark? O warrior of crystal, loyal servant of the Duke, corrupting yourself with these cursed minerals, that has only held off the Reaper ban as a simple fluke. You have had the chance before to meet me on equal terms as friends or lovers. But you and your master have turned your back on life, as if there was ever hope to avoid the fate of your brothers. Well, I'm trapped in a damn cage. But hey, at least this Izalith Catalyst barely does enough to actually kill our jailer and let us out. As for everything else around here, the shield is pretty good. As for the rest of the archives, there isn't really much to talk about. While I don't have the damage to really kill anything, I've got the health and poise to choke down a few hits and make my way without much issue. So it's mostly a pleasant walk, with a handful of shield bashes to clear the path as I go. And eventually, I get the bonfire, pick up the key to the big jail cell, and free Logain. And by free, I naturally mean, let the environment kill him. Maybe a few shield smacks to finish the job. Your mind, your very self, O wise sage, is not worth whatever overflowing knowledge you might consume, as these tomes are not made forbidden without reason, and it is not merely for fear of the powers they sum. On occasion, the lords wish only for your safety, to keep you from losing that which you hold most dear. For what use is a mind so open and brilliant, if it is only used to hide from fear? And this gives us another Catalyst. Not the best, but alrighty then, we can make this work. Oh, that more than works. Damn. This is like a legit strat against Seath, which is crazy since his magic defense is usually through the roof. Still, it doesn't take long between the White Dragon's Breath and the pokes of the twin Crystalization Catalyst. The final Lord Soul goes down quick. With Seath down, that puts us in cleanup mode. Time to finish off the DLC, kill off some remaining NPCs, and take care of some stragglers in the boss department. First, to get through the DLC, we need a weapon that can actually deal some real damage. So how about we head down into the catacombs and take out Vamos. He's the bony boy blacksmith who I may never actually use in a run. Like, the fire and chaos upgrade paths are good, but not get stuck in this dude's workshop good. He is literally feet away from the bone wheel skeletons, and that is not something I want to deal with today or any day. Fortunately, we've still got the White Dragon Breath, which, yeah. The ember has gone cold, noble smith. You build weapons in a land without war, where only demons and the dead lock in conflict. There remains no grand kings to strike your hammer for. An end is approaching day by day, to your wants, your needs, and this space you call home. So, think of this not as punishment for misguided trust, but the reward of peace you'd have otherwise never known. Not a terrible hammer to use. Strike damage is always cool, since so few enemies are resistant to strike the way they are to slashing. And fire is always a bonus to any build. So let's head out and kill another NPC. Yep, it's time to take out Griggs, since he doesn't drop a weapon, which means he won't mess with my gear too much. Shh. Well, that's unfortunate now, isn't it? I mean, I could get rid of the flip ring for that slumbering dragon crest, but that wouldn't really go in line with how this worked before. So instead, we say goodbye to the fap ring and basically have a useless pair of rings on. Or are they? They are. I have no reason to wear these. Or do I? Again, yes. These are basically wasted space. Or, yes, shut up. But what I do have use for is a few words for the fallen. O duteous student, or obsessive fanatic, leave the shadow of the giants that surround. There can only be growth when your branches can sprout unbound. Be grateful, yes, for the scaffolding they offered, but only so far as they do not swallow your light. To reach beyond them with even greater knowledge is both the duty of the student, as well as your right. While I'm offing members of the Firelink gang, I also take this time to kill Petrus, who it would seem had already taken the opportunity to kill Rhea. Kind of a surprise, because I thought I had to tell him about her surviving for him to go commit the murder. But I guess collecting all the Lord Souls is enough to trigger his cowardice streak and turn murderous. Oh, dedicated woman of the way, you saw fit to place too much trust in men who saw you as no more than a mistake, given a saintly duty to hold the light of white in your own bust. And your vile murderer has been laid to rest, a better fate than one deserved, of a cleric so wretchedly traitorous. Alright, let's go take on a boss now. How about Calamite? Yeah, this should be an easy trip with Vamos' hammer, right? Right? Actually, no. The damage isn't great, but it certainly gets the job done. Also, turns out the horny helmet I got from Vamos is giving me a little extra defense. I don't know exactly how much the helmet specifically is responsible for keeping me alive, or the Solaire armor, or the high vitality, or my having really learned this fight in the level 1 run, but whatever it is, this dragon Calamite's... No, I gotta have something better than that. Ooh, I got it! Eventually, Chaos wins out over Calamity. Honestly can't tell you how happy I am that this actually works, and that I don't have to spend hours fighting Calamite again. Like, I've learned the fight, but I really don't need a repeat of last time. One thing I don't repeat, however, is leaving behind Gough's Greatbow. Now, normally, you get that from talking to Gough after killing Calamine. He basically offers it as a reward for hunting the last dragon in the lands, and accepts his retirement from the hunt that he'd once dedicated his life to. However, this ain't exactly a normal run, and I'm looking to use that bow on something in particular. So let's, go a different path for picking up the big man's trusty weapon. Sleep well, scarred Knight of the Lords. Your time— Fuck! Okay, not gonna give it to me easy, huh? Fine. So, remember those useless rings? Well, turns out I stepped into a rather serendipitous situation, because it turns out that Gough is blind, and he can only suss us out by either listening to our footsteps, or responding after we hit him. However, since we've got the Slumbering Dragon Crest ring from Griggs, then he can't hear our footsteps at all. Which of course means we're golden. It takes some time to get through his giant health bar, but eventually, we get the job done. Okay, now time for final words. Sleep well, scarred Knight of Lords. The time of the hunt is longer in the past than yourself. With no more prey worth hunting, it is time for rest. In the cabin where you might hang your bow on the shelf. Do not worry of the fate of your fellows, for the remaining Knight of Gwyn is soon to follow. The others await you in the grand halls, to feast and hunt through forest and hollow. That was tough, killing Gough, and I don't necessarily mean the fact that he killed me. To be a Reaper man in such a dark landscape, it is quite the task. But I accept it. I can bear it. Because if I don't, then I fear who might come to take this place in my stead. Sorry, we've got bosses to kill, and I've got a fun option for what to do with Gough's bow. I imagine a few of you may have assumed I'd head this way once I got the black bow, but no. I was saving this one for much later. That's right, we've got the Moonlight Butterfly, and honestly, any ranged build, or at least having access to some quality range within a better balanced build, will lead to a pretty easy kill on this boss. I may have bought 1,000 arrows to be safe, but it only takes a handful for us to hit our boss quota for the weapon. Of course, this isn't the only task we have set for the Greatbow. We've also got the biggest NPC of them all to kill. An illusion. Never mind then, princess. I suppose you must have already passed on then. Poor Gwendolyn. They must be so sad all by themselves. I'll have to fix that later. For now, though, we're starting to run out of bosses, and we've got a handful of weapons to make use of. So it's time to take on our next NPC. In this case, we've got Karen, interestingly enough. This is the final of Gwyn's 4 knights on the docket. I will say that I wish we got more dialogue from her too. Gough gives us a good idea of what knighthood was for these 4, but in her, we kind of only get vibes for her affection towards Artorias, which seem to have gone unrequited. A sorrowful story for sure, but over now that I've started hucking harpoons into her head. And of course, the spike shield comes in clutch once again to help me finish off the fight once she starts dodging every arrow. The knighthood has been stripped of both charge and master. There are no more enemies of your lord for you to hunt. O skillful blade of the flame's nightly shadow, you are the final to suffer this brunt. Pass beyond your undead curse, knowing in your heart that you served your purpose well. But there is no need for assassins in the night, as a new day will break to release Lordran from its fading hell. So, Karen. She also drops her armor set here, as well as the gold and silver tracer. Once again, you can get these without killing her, simply by trading the soul of Artorias to her after she first arrives here. However, for the completionists among us, who need to collect everything in the game, killing her gives us both her clothes and the weapons, while still leaving us with the soul to turn into the Abyss Sword. Is it worth it? Again, not to me, because I like making sure that these characters have positive resolutions. But to each their own, I suppose. So, who are we going to kill with the Tracer Twins? Oh, and you may have noticed that I'm holding the silver tracer in my right hand with the gold tracer in my left, even though common sense would be to reverse them. Well, that's because this is how Karen holds them, and it actually gives the gold tracer a unique left-handed attack. Might have been a good pick back in the lefty-only run, to be honest. But a normal-ish moveset wasn't really the point of that challenge, now was it? Anyway, since I decide that I'm also not very familiar with the Silver Tracer, this is what I want to use to kill the Gaping Dragon. As a relatively early game boss, he should be pretty easy to take down, even with something that I'm not too skilled with. That is, if the boss doesn't go ahead and yeet me into the abyss first. All the same, the Silver Tracer does some better work than I might have assumed from a dagger, and we make pretty quick work of the Gaping Dragon. Another weapon that might be worth checking out in a more casual atmosphere. Seriously, that's been like the main theme of this playthrough. Constantly finding new stuff that could make for super fun casual builds. On the other hand, our next target is actually one who I've killed for his drop multiple times. In fact, if you're looking to practice some speedrun strats, but hate having to reset every 5 minutes because the Black Knight refuses to drop that damn halberd, give killing Patches in the Catacombs a go. It's a bit of a trek, and the weapon he drops isn't exactly a 1-to-1 for the Black Knight halberd, but it's at least comparable enough to get a feel for the flow of the speedrun. Especially worth it in marathon settings if you need a guaranteed backup drop. However, to get it, we must offer some final words. Begone, O vile trickster, you who would step across worlds unbound by time. This is not a land for your pilfering hands, nor are these holy men deserving of your crime. However, your jests betray the just heart below. If only you could see it act on the surface. Then perhaps this Reaper could greet a friend, tied alike to an honorable service. Well, with Patches dead, we get our hands on the Crescent Axe. The faith requirement is pretty steep, but we've already got that covered after power leveling, cheating, to be able to wield Grant earlier. But this is otherwise a remarkably powerful axe that upgrades with Twinkling Titanite and delivers a decent amount of magic damage. Considering how quickly Patches can be found in the Catacombs, there are a lot worse weapons players could start off with. So now that we've got an actually powerful weapon, we've got a few more NPCs to knock off the list, and a boss. To start, let's head into Anor Londo. We've actually got a surprisingly large number of targets here to take care of. This begins with the 2 NPCs that appear in the main hall after the area goes dark. They're a tricky pack of twats, especially without a shield to farm parries with. O silent sentinels of this endless night, rest yourselves now within this empty hall. The tower walls bathe in light no longer. There remains no people in this city for whom to stand so tall. This is a dead land, filled with naught but dead men, and the Reaper has come to guide you away. For to live in death is a curse man should never bear, to be forced to struggle, even beyond your last true-born day. Next up is Gwendolyn, my boss of choice for this weapon. Honestly, I could easily have swapped this to be what I took on Calamite with, and I think it would have been a bit better use of both tools. But what can you do? The numbers were dwindling, and this is all I had left. As for the boss, well, we all know the drill by now. Strafe the arrows, hide from the cluster shots, dodge the big blast. Repeat until Gwendolyn finally joins their sister in the next life. Don't worry, father's on the way soon. So, with this weapon, I also decide it's about time to clean up a handful of other NPCs all at once. The list is pretty expansive, so I'm going to rapid fire some of these final words. Even though some might deserve more stanzas than others, it is sometimes the fate of even the greats to find themselves in mass graves among the serfs. Ask Mozart how it feels. O fair daughter of chaos, and loyal servant, lay your heads and allow yourselves to pass. It is no longer your duty to tend to these unborn children. The chaos had already swallowed them in mass. Noble knights, from such distant lands, this world was never to be your glory. Only death awaits in Lordran. There is no further triumph, only an end to your story. Merchant kind and merchant twisted, this is the end for those who trade in death. For the Reaper Man is the only soul who will take purchase of your final breath. Oh hey, I got new drip on the way. Looking good for the end of the run. Yeah, I definitely saved Chester for this late because I wanted to end with his gear. What can I say? I love me a long coat. It's a bit of a weakness, and certainly a trend for way too much of my writing. Anyway, with these NPCs all gone, we still haven't solved our weapon problem. There still remain 3 bosses, and exactly 2 more NPCs drop weapons. So, let's pick up our penultimate weapon and prepare for a pretty disastrous mistake for the end of the run. Yeah, this one's quite the blunder, but for now, we get one of the strongest weapons in the game, when we kill the giant blacksmith. You know the drill. Final words time. Great giant, do not fear what has come, for you have done your part with hammer in hand, having granted death the strength for his charge. Yours is the greatest gift in this land. Go knowing that it is your tireless swinging that would lead this world to cease its pains, and be free of undeath and abyss alike, as the blessing of death takes the reins. And now we've got the Blacksmith Giant Hammer, the inspiration for this entire run, in fact. Was it worth it? I argue no. But here we are, and there the giant blacksmith was. In any other story, he'd be dead for the sake of loot. But if I was going to kill him, then I figured I'd show him, and the others for that matter, the care they deserve. So, what's our reward for getting this far and killing all of these characters? We get to find the Handman himself, Menace. And I've gotta say, this hammer would not have been the difference for my Soul Level 1 run. Oh yeah, that was basically the entire point of this whole venture. To give myself an excuse to fight Menace with the lightning hammer from the giant blacksmith, and see how OP it could be. But without RTSR or Power Within to boost the damage super high, it's basically like any other weapon. And I'm not good enough to fight Menace without being able to tank some hits. In fact, I don't even bother trying to solo him here. I call in Sif for help. Because honestly, I'm done with this whole bit. Killing, the constantly shifting build, and more than anything, the damn Handman. Oh, and when we kill him, we get to kill another innocent NPC. Dusk. Rescue her twice, only to kill her now. How utterly droll. Oh, final light of a dark day, you've been through more than enough. Encased in crystal and ripped through time, it is your duty, it seems, to suffer the cuff. So rest now beyond the dark, where you can no longer be taken as hostage or prize by those whose title of lords are mistaken. But done as I may be, the job isn't finished. Still got a few stragglers to knock off the list. That first includes Priscilla, and then a few more words for the remaining fallen. Keeper of flame and guardian of the tomb, there is nothing left for you to protect. As the false grave sits empty, your lord still stands by his dying flame, spine lively erect. Poor woman, scrounging for the strength of Lordran, it was never your right to collect the souls of others, and it is well past time for your death to take hold, so that you might be free of the need for commerce and its bothers. Collector of sin, offering absolution to any who pay, allow me to offer you something for free, a way to end your ceaseless duty, and perhaps present yourself for your dark goddess to see. Prisoned smith of Vinheim, be free from your darkened bondage. It is time to leave this damned land behind, and await a new life to prove your art in a new age. Okay. Almost done. We're almost finished. Finally. The killing is almost over. All we have left is one of the first friends we ever met on this run. One who's bolstered the strength of our weapons without fail every time we've asked. He is our oldest companion and deepest ally in this long journey, which is why it's time to kill him. Hello, my stalwart companion. It is good to see you once more. Even if this is to be our last meeting, I'm glad to be the one to show you the final door. For while it may be my duty to bring about your end, know your Reaper is here to offer a hand to catch your tears, because no one wants to see you go hollow either. Which is why it's so important that your Reaper man cares. So, this was a mistake, like a pretty terrible blunder. The only boss we have remaining here is Gwyn. Not exactly the easiest boss when my left hand still has that gold tracer in it, which cannot parry. Now, the problem comes from the fact that the Blacksmith Hammer that drops from Andre is a standard upgrade weapon, and all of the other blacksmiths are dead. What all of that means is that I get to pump this up to +5 at most, and I can't even send them up any other upgrade paths. Not that I would for this run, but still. It sucks that I don't even have the option. Now, I'll be honest. At this point, this run has had an effect on me, among other things. And while I definitely give it an honest try with this weak weapon and pull the gold tracer to improve my moveset, it quickly becomes time to swap out the gold tracer for a bare left hand and parry Gwyn to death. It takes some time, and there are plenty of failed attempts, but eventually, we see the end of this fight and can finally put this run behind us. So, how do using NPC drops go? Well, a lot of these weapons are pretty interesting, and some NPCs like Solaire drop full sets that could almost entirely fill out a build on their own. Otherwise, yeah, I'm not exactly a fan of having to constantly kill every single NPC, including the ones I normally fight like Lautrec and ones I never kill like Andre. There are so few moments of levity throughout this game, and it kinda sucks to have to be responsible for ending all of them. And this is after 10 years of playing this game fairly regularly, which is why I decided to turn this into a grimdark adaptation of Discworld's Reaper Man, because I think it's a great outlook on death. Because if we're going to take on the role of Lord of Life and Death, even over these pieces of code and written scripts of dialogue, then it's more important than ever for the Reaper Man to care. Hey, it's that time again. The end of the video where I invite folks to come check out the Patreon. Link in the description, and make good on the rewards for those currently pledged. Patreon members get early access to new content and their names written in the credits at the end of videos. And those who pledge $5 or more get their names read out, like Azul. Thanks for your support, and thanks for watching.